Alright, lads, welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball. Myself and Shane here once again. Shane, fresh from a trip over to watch Munster face Bath. I know the result didn't go the way you wanted it, but did you have a good time?
Yeah, so Munster were in Bath, but I don't think they were playing any rugby. Yeah, do you know what? It was a really nice city. I couldn't believe how nice it was, to be fair. I definitely recommend it. And it's Christmas markets and everything. It was actually really nice. But then standing in that rain as
Yeah.
Munster were just getting absolutely hockeyed was not fun. I had a couple of drinks, so I didn't really notice the score until the next morning, to be perfectly honest. But I just knew they'd been absolutely walloped. But look, it's another one off the list. I always try and get one Munster away trip a year. Normally it's in January. I don't think I'll get away in January this year. So got that one ticked off the list again and we move.
Yeah, you might come up here and watch a bit of Leinster in January with me.
Yeah,
Hopefully
we'll
see
see
a
about
win.
that. You know,
But this week we've got an absolutely packed episode, so we'll get straight into the rundown of things. So where we're going to go first is to the football stuff. So we did a bit of a look at the performance of last weekend. So we gave Aston Villa the props there because brilliant against Arsenal, great win, puts them within 3 points, a top spot. Next up, we had to hone in on Mo Salah. So we talked a lot about the situation with him, his comments, and the response to that. Especially considering Shane is a Liverpool fan, so it was interesting to get his take there. And then we previewed the Tyne derby on Sunday. Sunderland versus Newcastle, going to be a massive one. Next up, we had Michael on. So we'll discuss the situation surrounding Michael being on the podcast, and you'll hear all about that once you get to that segment. But Michael is a permanent member of the team now, as hopefully you'll have seen on Instagram, and he's going to bring a topic every 2 weeks. So he brought the question today of, are the Phoenix Suns for real, or are they just on a similar wavelength to how the Bulls started the season with kind of a hot run and things fell off? Will the Suns fall off too? So we gave a good discussion about that, hitting it from all angles, both sides of the debate. Then we had Evan on. A pleasure to have him back on once again. Our resident Cowboys fan at this stage. He's been on a few times, and we talked first of all about the clutch player of the week last week in the NFL. So it was back to offense this week. We'll let you listen to that to hear who it was. And then we talked about whether or not the Cowboys can make the playoffs. A big focus on the remaining schedule for the Cowboys and the Eagles, and what they can do to see out the rest of the season. So we've got Gans Seans thrown in there, power rankings too, all that good stuff. So let's jump straight into it. All right, lads. Performance of the weekend in the football, in the Premier League. Usually it doesn't end up being the game that we previewed the week before, because there's often like a surprise or someone stepping up that we didn't expect that we kind of have to give the performance of the weekend to. But this time we kind of had to go for Villa. Like, incredible performance. Only the second game that Arsenal have lost all season on XG, 2.16 to 1.92, which shows like Arsenal. I know the score was 2-1, which is the most important part, but statistically behind it for Villa to do that to Arsenal is quite impressive. I think the way they won as well, they deserved the win, and to score right at the very end with like the last kick of the game couldn't be better in front of your own fans. What did you think of them?
Yeah, I was delighted for him. Not only because I absolutely despise Arsenal, I just thought Villa were just so good. We both had him in our done chance as well. So we had an inkling it was going to go this way as well. I think I said 2-1 as well in our preview
Good.
last week. So I finally got something right. It's something I can put on the CV now that I called the game right. But I just thought from start to finish, they never really looked under pressure, bar around when Arsenal scores. There was a 5 or 10 minute period there where Arsenal looked like if they scored a second, they could have gotten three or four. But Villa were just so resilient from then. Matty Cash is having some season from him. He was absolutely excellent again here. And Buendia is another man who he looked like he was going to go in the summer, and now he's one of their most important players. Harvey Elliott can't get a look in with the form, but Buendia is in. And it was looking like they were bringing Elliott in to get rid of Buendia in the summer. So fair play to him as well. And that's 12 wins and 14, I think, or 13 wins in their last 15. That's one hell of a run to be on. And I'm so happy they brought Arsenal back down there. Arsenal had a really poor week. 4 points from their three games, and City are right back on their tails again now.
Yeah, I think Villa this season in general have really overperformed. Like, they've scored a lot of long shots. If you look at the expected points table, they should be 16th. So they're
Yeah.
overperforming by 13 points. They haven't been very convincing in a lot of their games. Like when they beat Wolves 1-0, they were far from convincing. But then you look at what they did to Arsenal and you think, if they start playing fully to their like ability that they did against Arsenal that we've seen in flashes, like how high can they go here? Because they're only 3 points off top, and the majority of the season they haven't been overwhelmingly good, but they've been stacking wins after wins after wins by just doing what's needed. And then in this game, they show everything that they can do. So if their like statistical performance and underlying numbers match up to the results they're getting, they can continue to climb here and they can push Arsenal. Because if they like I said, that's something that could be a tick upwards now that they've beaten Arsenal. They showed what they could do, fully perform better, not just won the game. Then you can really see where they could go from there. I think the game was very well managed by both managers. I think because Villa started off well, they did exactly what was needed to do. They had Arsenal under pressure. Rice made a great block on Cash. He could have had another goal there. And Watkins missed a big chance in the first half. So in the
Mm.
second half, Arteta came out, he wasn't messing around. He had the team set up. He made a couple of subs. And like you said, Arsenal really put Villa under the cosh in that first 10, 15, 20 minutes and looked like they were going to win the game then. And then Emery kind of responded by taking off Watkins, who looked leggy, bringing on Malin, who was a great outlet and has been solid this season. And then when they started to get more of a foothold, he brought on Bogard and Sancho, which brought a bit more urgency into the team. And then to bring on Buendia just before injury time and he gets the winner. It was great management, great adaptation at halftime from Arteta, but he got outfoxed by Emery in the end. He set them up right from the start and he reacted right. So he won that tactical battle for me, and it was a real good game to watch because of those things and those pushbacks back and forth between them. And now is really a testing time for Villa because they've got West Ham next. They should win that, but after that they have Man United at home, Chelsea and Arsenal away. So going to be a tough Christmas period, and if they can build on that, God knows how high they can go this season.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to bring up next as well about their run now coming into Christmas. But I saw a thing during the week that they should only be 5 points ahead of Wolves based on
Yeah,
the expected goals table. And they're actually, I think they're Villa are on 31 and Wolves are on 2. So they're outperforming that by 24 points, which is
so
absolutely mental. They also didn't score their first goal of the season until game week 5 as well. So the fact they've gone from what they were doing at the start to what they're doing now and just grinding out wins week after week after week. It's a really impressive sign. And if they do get going at any point, who knows where they can end up? They convert. I think they're not a shoe in for the top four. But if you're looking now and you're saying Man City and Arsenal are getting there, who's your next favourite to get in there? I'd be putting Villa in there as my third favourite to get into the top four at the moment.
yeah,
We'll see now when it comes to January after they've played those 4 games where they are if they're still on. Like I don't think they're going to win all four. I think if they win two, draw one, and lose one, I think that's a really good
yeah,
outcome for them. As long as they don't come out of that with one win and then 3 losses in the 3 big games to beat West Ham and lose the other three, that could really rock them. But if they can just kind of ride the wave they're on now, keep going, and just get over the line in those 4 games and see where they're standing then after that.
yeah. Not just as like a United fan, but I think that'll be a tough one for them because
Mm.
United are very good away from home, and United do seem to give them problems in Villa Park. So I do think that that is an important one. And United haven't lost many games recently, despite some of the poor performances they've put out. They have spurts where they're good. So if they can beat West Ham and then on the back of that beat Man United, then I think they'll be flying into the Christmas period. But we've got to move on because we've got a preview for you of a big derby, but we've also got a big topic to touch on surrounding one of your star men, Liverpool, Mo Salah. I just think after the game, let's give a bit of background and then throw it to you. Crazy statement that he made. So he was an unused sub in the win away to West Ham. He was on the bench the other 2 games as well that Liverpool played in that period. The 45 minutes he had against Sunderland and then an unused sub in the 3-3 draw with Leeds. Coming off that draw with Leeds, he said his quote was that I'm sitting out on the bench for 90 minutes, third time on the bench, I think for the first time in my career. I'm very, very disappointed, to be fair. I've done so much for this club down the years, and especially last season. Now I'm sitting on the bench and I don't know why. It seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. That is how I'm feeling. I think it is very clear that someone wanted me to get all of the blame. So, what did you make of that, Shane?
First of all, I think he is so wrong for what he's after doing. Um, I'd love to be able to sit here and say, "Oh, I back him completely to the hill," but I can't. There's nothing you can back him on. It's a couple of sentences in that statement that are absolutely wild. I don't have to earn my place in the team anymore for what I've done.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. What I did for the club last season, yeah, and you got 400 grand a week in the summer first. Like, Joe, it's not like you scored all the goals, got all the assists last year, they won the league, and they let you go, or they gave you a small contract. They gave you the biggest contract in the club's history for
yeah,
what you did last year. You have to think about it this way. He's been out of the team for 1 week. It was 7 days is all he was out of the team for, and this is how he's reacted. I'd say
yeah,
something if it was a month. He was out for the whole Christmas period, setting the bench. He wasn't going to AFCON. He was just setting the bench for Liverpool, like he wasn't, like he didn't exist. But no, it was literally 7 days he was on the bench. He played 45 minutes against Sunderland when they needed him. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Of all times too, as well, Liverpool really didn't need this at the moment. There was enough fires inside the facility, and he's just gotten a whole petrol station and dropped it on top just to make it worse. I can't believe what he's done. They've also gone unbeaten in the 4 games that he hasn't played in as well, which is a bit of a kick in the teeth for him as well. I say the fact they've just looked so much more defensively solid until Kanate just decided to kick Nanto. They were so good against Leeds. And then they were really good midweek against Inter as well, where Kanate didn't kick anyone and was just actually a defender for a change. So it doesn't look good for him. Unfortunately, I think he does go, but if this is the way it ends, it's really, really sad.
yeah. It's a bad end to it if it is the way it ends, like you said. I think that was a point I was going to make. Without the Inter game, they dropped him completely, obviously, off the back of what he said. But before that, in the 3 games where he sat on the bench and one of them he came on, he got 5 points. What was it like? You lost 6 of 7 before that in the Premier League.
Yeah,
So that's a lot more points than you were getting before. Now, granted, you did play Leeds and West Ham and Sunderland,
have
but
to be like it's
it's
5 points
it's
in
still
those three
more points,
games is terrible. Yeah,
but it's still
5 points
more.
in those 3 games is terrible. But they looked so much better and so much more solid without Salah in the team, with Sabazai out on the right.
Mm,
Like I don't think he was going to be dropped forever. I'm so annoyed at him because it's 7 days. I'm going to say that over and over again till I'm blue in the face. It's only 7 days he was out of the team, and this is the statement he makes. And someone wants me out of the club. They've thrown me under the bus, but it was a week. Come on, like Joe, just get your head down and train, and just get your way back into the team the way you've done the whole time you've been at Liverpool. You've always been a star.
yeah.
This is such an ego issue, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll come off that and say Jamie Carragher's response on Monday Night Football. There's one quote there. There is some things that were yeah, we're going to come on to that. But first of all, the one quote that I did think was right and probably is a good representation is that whenever Mo Salah stops in the mix zone, he's which he's done 4 times in 8 years at Liverpool, it's choreographed with him and his agent to cause maximum damage and strengthen his
Mm.
own position. That is accurate because it does seem like he wanted to pin the blame here on Slot and throw like the toys out of the pram right at the moment where Slot was his weakest and get him sacked. That was his. I think that would seemed like that was his tactic. So I was like, all right, that's a good point from Carragher. But you could tell he was absolutely bulling. His earpiece fell out in his like 8 or 9 minute rant. Some of these further quotes kind of just idiotic because he started to question him, like basically say that he was never a decent player before Liverpool and say that, personally attack his performances with Egypt. So he said, quote, one thing I just want to sort of remind Mo Salah and maybe his agent is that before he came to Liverpool, Mo Salah was known as the guy who failed at Chelsea. That's just a fact. He's also the greatest player his country have ever had. Egypt in the African Cup of Nations are the most successful nation. He's going there in a couple of weeks. Mo Salah's never won the AFCON. Now, Egypt have had their own struggles as a country, so I think that was a bit tone deaf. And
Yeah,
then he
100%.
asked, have I ever criticised Mo Salah? To
Yeah,
which the pundit said, last week he said his legs have gone. And Carragher came back and said, that's something that happens to every player. That's not a criticism of him as a player. So his head was gone, and that's exactly what Salah wanted.
100%. Salah got everything and more out of that Carragher 9 minute rant. Some like he made some good points, and then once he lost his head, he just completely went said the most ridiculous things. That one about I've never criticized Mo Salah as a player was the one that it just sent him on the spiral. I really didn't like the comments about Egypt and the Chelsea failure. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. Mo Salah will love that. Which is another couple of things. Like he was just completely at the start. I was like, oh, he's actually doing really well here. He's making his points. He's getting it across really well. And then he just fell apart. I'm Salah's agent. I cannot stand that man. He's always there with his cryptic tweets and all that kind of other nonsense. Well, he's always been a pain in the backside. I can only imagine how hard he is to deal with for the club in general. And as you said, it's always orchestrated for Salah to come out and say it at the one time that it's the worst possible time.
Hmm.
Last year he did it after the Southampton game. He scored the winning penalty, came out and said, "Oh, I'm not getting a contract." This year, didn't come on against Leeds and stops. Just, I'm so annoyed at him because he's my favourite Liverpool player ever. He's on 250 goals to the club now, which is immense in 8 or 9 years. And if he's done this and this is how it ends, and he goes
Hmm.
off to Saudi at 33, I think it's a bit of a disgrace, to be honest. I think he should have just gotten his head down, as I said a few minutes ago, and just worked and just fought his way back into the team. I hate this Twitter stuff now where it's like, oh, Salah's annoyed that Fierce is getting more game time. Salah's annoyed at this. Like, all of that is just such nonsense. And
It's
I
only about
wish,
him. That's all he thinks about.
yeah, I just wish that those things weren't adding fuel, well, fake fuel to this unimaginably big fire already. I thought Seydorf was brilliant with Slot the other night. Hopefully he got through to him and they will actually have a conversation. And hopefully we see him on Saturday. Probably on the bench again, but as long as he's back in the squad, then it will mean that him and Slot have had a talk and might mean that he will stay then.
I can't personally. I can't see that because of Afcon coming up. I feel like it'd be tabled, and Salah would be in the position where he says, "Yeah, that's it. If you're going to stick with the manager, then I'm gone."
Hmm.
I think just based on that response and his ego in general will be hurt, um, by probably most people coming out against him in this situation. And it's kind of a similar way to how things went when Ronaldo returned to United. Him and Ten Hag clashed, and then Ronaldo did a full scale interview with Piers Morgan
Yeah,
afterwards and stuff. So that made me annoyed because he had been my favourite United player growing up, and that left a bad taste in my mouth about him. To which end that when he got sent off against Ireland, I was absolutely delighted. But I think one final point I have on it is, could he not have just like sucked it up for one, two more games? If they had him on the bench against
it's
Inter and then this weekend, then he could have just went to AFCON. Then if Liverpool, just didn't play well when he was gone or things went a different way, you never know. When he comes back, who knows what would have happened? And another point then on that, which this one is something I wouldn't personally agree with, but it is something I've heard, is that could Slot have maybe played him in one or two of the games, benched him in the other, played him in one or two of the last games, and then let him go to AFCON, hope that you win when he's gone, and then be like, oh, well, we're winning without you. But I don't agree with that one. But that's just another one I've heard. But what's your thoughts on those? I think you're probably on the same line as me that Salah should have just held his tongue until after.
100%. I agree with everything you said there. I agree with the first one. Also agree with you disagreeing with the second one. Like he's the manager. He can't just pick players because they're going to be crying in the corner if they don't get on the team. Like I think I think you absolutely have to back the manager in this case. And that's Salah should have known that as well. That the club aren't going to back a player. They've never backed a player. Steven Gerrard was thrown out in his arse the same way by Brendan Rodgers, like, and he's Liverpool's best ever player. So if you think you're going to be treated differently to how Steven Gerrard was treated, you're completely wrong. He should have just bit his lip. It was 3 more games, 2 more games. It was Inter Milan and Brighton, and then he's gone to AFCON for a month. Why did you pick this time to come out and completely just blow everything up? Absolutely mental behaviour from him to come out and do it then. Go to AFCON. If you're at AFCON and you're still feeling upset, then do your interview over there with your Egyptian television channel or one of the big ones at the AFCON and say, oh, I feel like I've been let down. But like he might have started the inter game. He might have been back in the team for the Brighton
Yeah.
game. But now he's not going to know because he did this. It was 7 days. Like it was only 7 days. Like he could have been back to the team against Inter, and all of a sudden everything's forgotten about, and off you go. Just absolutely wild behaviour from him.
Yeah. I think if this is how it ends for him, you're gonna have to make it was just 7 days your new catchphrase, because it's a bad way to end, and that is a great point about it. But let's move on to our preview for the weekend. We've got a derby coming up. So we've got the Tyne Derby, Super Sunday, Sunderland versus Newcastle. What a cracker this is going to be because we haven't had this game in the Premier League in so long. Sunderland flying high, Newcastle looking to bounce back. What way is this going to go? We'll give our predictions, but initial thoughts. What do you think about this game, Shane?
And they're going to kick each other off the pitch. It's going to be more of a UFC battle than it is a football match. I think for the first 10 or 15 minutes, tackles are going to fly in and then it might settle down a bit. But
Mm.
I'd like if Joe Linton gets booked with his first foul here, which he never does, he normally gets right about
No,
six, then
he's
he's
allowed
definitely
nine
going to get
fouls.
sent off. Yeah, I could see Shaka being sent off. I could see John Linton being sent off. Could see Bruno being sent off. All these lads who are just going to just fly into everything. The atmosphere of this is going to be insane. It's going to be insane. It's going to be some game.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. It was one of the points I had as well. Joe Linton versus Shaka in midfield should be fun
Yeah,
because those two are just going to burst each other. And like Joe Linton gets unfairly given extra fouls because it's like that thing, like if you constantly foul, the same in basketball, but like Draymond Green, he just constantly fouls people. So he gets like less technicals and less like harsh calls on the fouls because he's always fouling. And it's the same with Joe Linton. But it makes for good viewing in games like this for me, Sunderland, I know they're doing well, like they're high up, but there's games like when they played United, I wasn't impressed with them at all. I thought they were very bad. And there's a couple of other times I've watched them where they've been poor. They've done exactly what they needed to do as a promoted team, and I think they'll definitely stay up now in the position they're in. They're flying it,
yeah,
but at the same time, I think they're probably gonna fall off a cliff at some point because they're not performing well consistently. They're the second lowest XG in the league with 13, so they're overperforming that by 5. Only 3 shots on target per game. You can't consistently do that. Only Burnley are worse than both of those, and we saw how bad they are. 21 XG conceded, but they've only conceded 17 goals. So they're really looking out on that end too. And they should be 18th in the league on X points based on the XG, and they're overperforming by 8 points there. Only Villa are the only team that's overperforming by more. So these things do catch up with you unless you shift your performance. And I, as with Villa, they have the ability to go and play like the way they did against Arsenal. Sunderland don't have that ability. I'm sorry to say, they're a good team. They're doing exactly what they need to do to stay up, but they're going to plateau. And the main thing that they'll be hoping for going into this one is the fact they have 15 points from 7 games at home, and Newcastle only have 6 from 7 away. They are hoping that form will carry them over this. So whether it's this week or in the future, but I do think it's going to be soon that they do start to fall off.
yeah. I agree with you. I think it is going to catch them, and I think it's going to start this weekend. I think Newcastle are going to catch them this weekend. I know Newcastle have been poor at times, but they just have far more quality in their squad than Sunderland have. I think Sunderland have been getting some good results somehow. I don't know how they're getting away with some of them. You just listed off everything there, and like I know a lot of people don't like XG and don't like all the X points and stuff, but like they're there for a reason, and
Mm.
you're not going to keep getting away with. You should be 18, but you're sixth. Like that's not normal. Like you're going to finish up 15th or 14th, but they'll have no problem staying up with the points they've amassed now already this season. They've done a great job in getting to where they are, but now it is time for them to just actually be a promoted team again and lose 3 or 4 in the bounce. I think
Yeah, just looking at how they played the City too, it was quite poor. And then
really poor.
following on from that, like they've got this Newcastle game, and then they've Brighton away, Leeds at home, which is a big one
Mm.
for Leeds to try and show that they're improving. But then after that, City at home and Spurs away. So I think it's very tough. The prediction I'm going for here is 3-1 to Newcastle. I just think it might be a bit feisty. Newcastle do concede goals, but they score as well. And I think Gordon coming back unbeaten in 4, him back in the team for each of those, getting some minutes, he's just gives them something down that wing where he actually has a finishing product, unlike Alanga, who a lot of the time he doesn't really know how to end a run. Whereas you have Gordon, he's clinical, he's a decent finisher, but he's also good at picking people out. And then you have Vissa to come off the bench. I think Newcastle could be sitting around 2-1. Sunderland keep pushing, and then Newcastle grab a goal on the break at the end, maybe through Barnes or Gordon or something, to make it 3-1.
I have 2-1 Newcastle with everything you said, bar them hitting them on the counter at the last couple of minutes to make it 3-1. I think they'll go 2-0 up. Newcastle will bar Sunderland will pull one back in 70 or 75th minute, but they'll never look like getting an equaliser out of it. So 2-1 Newcastle for me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one though for all the reasons we said. But yeah, I think Newcastle are going to get a win here because they're overdue a big win that kind of sorts them out and rights the ship a bit more. So yeah, both going with a win there. So if you're following us on Instagram, which if you're not, get over there and follow us. You'll see that we've got a new member of our team. If you've been listening to us before, you probably know him already. Michael has been on a good few episodes with us, providing some of his basketball expertise. Yeah, always great to have him on. Always good feedback. So we've got him on now as a permanent member of the team. So it's going to be once every 2 weeks. He's going to be on the podcast, bringing a topic of his own to the table, and then we're going to do some additional once a month podcasts looking at the previous month in the NBA and what's coming up in the month ahead. So, Michael, welcome to the team.
Thanks very much. I'm super excited to be here. There's a lot going on already, and I'm slowly getting into speed. But hopefully, I can be as well versed as you guys in the next coming months.
Yeah, you're right there with the NBA stuff. We're gonna ramp you up onto NFL level soon enough as well. You're full on in our fantasy league, so you've you're growing that knowledge. Unfortunately, an Eagles fan, but we'll leave that one there for now because we're on the NBA. Let's throw it to you then. So Michael's going to bring a topic, kind of a nice rounded topic that we can dish on for maybe 15 or so minutes every couple of weeks. So let's throw it to you. What have you got for your first topic for us?
So, first topic was a little bit out of there, but I feel like there's been so much talk already with Chris Paul and the Bucks and Giannis and everyone else that I thought I went with something a little bit different, a little bit more interesting. The Phoenix Suns are currently the seventh seed in the West after starting the season 4-1. They've lost Jalen Green now. They had him for a game and 6 minutes, and he looked fantastic in those game and 6 minutes. Devin Booker is just coming back from injury now after a week being out, and it looks like they've still managed to keep up their winning record. Are we looking at a Bulls situation where it's just a little bit more prolonged and they're just going to fall off and hit the bottom of the conference? Or are we looking at a 6 seed? Are we looking at a 7 seed here?
Well, for me, based on what they've done now, it seems to be better than last year already. And I listened to an interview with Matt Ishbia. He was on the Ryan Rosillo podcast, and he spoke well. He usually tends to speak well, to be honest, but he kind of like acknowledged that he made a mistake in allowing Durant and Beal to be the core of the team without throwing them under the bus. Really, he is speaking between the lines. Kind of also said that he didn't really have an over involvement in that side of things, and now he's taken a more hands-on approach, kind of building the culture of the team and stuff. Which, take that what you will, it's kind of avoiding the negative part and putting himself in the positive side of things now that it's working. But I do believe he was being genuine, and he made a point about kind of having more like dogs in the team, people who want to fight, they want to give all their efforts. He made a point of Jordan Goodwin. He also really honed in on Dylan Brooks here, which I think is valid, because looking at what he's given the team offensively and defensively, you're 22 points a game, but also 1.5 steals per game. He's thrown up a lot of threes. His percentage is tied for the worst he's ever had, but that should even out because he's never afraid to actually shoot them, which is important. And I think him, Grayson Allen, these type of guys are real menaces on the court. So they have a whole different identity, and well, for me, they're more enjoyable to watch. Whether they'll actually make the playoffs, I think a play-in at this point, watching them and seeing Booker come back and Jalen Green get involved, I'd say a play-in will be the most they can do. Because the West is so strong, but I think it's a positive sign for them for the future.
Yeah, the issue I have with them is I don't think a team who's serious about going anywhere loses by 49 points to anyone. I know this OKC team they're special, but you can't go out and lose by 49 points if you're looking to be a seventh seed. Like I wouldn't expect the Wizards or the Jazz to go out and lose by 49 or 50 points to anyone, let alone a team that thinks that has like they have their eyes on doing something a bit special. They're 5-5 in their last 10, so it's not like they're on this massive run of form either, where they've just kind of just found a kind of a run and they're like 7-3 or 8-2. They're 5-5. they played the Rockets twice and OKC and not scored over 100 in any of those games as well. So I'm with you. I think if they can get to a play-in, I think they'll be doing very, very well because I think they're riding a bit of a wave. It's not much of a wave now when you're 5-5, but I think at 14 and 11, it's just as you said, the West is so strong that it'd be very hard to see them getting to 50 or 60 wins. Not even
I will
60.
say
That's
before,
ridiculous. 45 or 50
based
wins.
on based on that like record though, I will say that it's less of a wave more than it seems to be. Like they're like if they were like 9-1 and we're seeing these same things in their last 10, and you'd be like, great, they're just on a spike. But this seems a little bit more like who they are now, that they'll win some games. They probably won't beat the best teams because they're not one of the best teams. But I'll also point out that you're never going to come close to the OKC when you don't have your two probably most prolific scorers. Like, where else were they getting points from without Booker? And Jalen Green couldn't play either. So it's a tough one. But one guy I know you'll want to talk about anyway, for sure, Michael, is Gillespie. I know for sure you want to make some notes on this guy, so let's hear what you have to say about him.
I think Gillespie has been fantastic for them. I think the Suns team is over exceeding a lot of expectations, and that's the reason why I thought they were so interesting, is because like you've said, they've just went 5-5, but they're still looking at the 7th seed. I mean, the Kings have fallen off the cliff, the Clippers have fallen off a cliff, and it kind of feels like the lower seeding in the playoff bracket is open. With Devin Booker coming back and Jalen Green eventually coming back, I think this team is actually going to look a lot more dangerous than we thought. I mean, they're middle of the pack in defense. They're above average defense and slightly above average in offense. You kind of look at the team and you go like, who's scoring? And it's Dylan Brooks has all the confidence in the world. He knows Jalen Green is out. He knows somebody has to step up and shoot it. And by God, he's willing. And he's still doing that, given insane effort on the floor. Like you said, Colin Gillespie has been a savior for this Suns team. They have been desperate for someone who can read the floor, and he has a great touch for it. Weirdly, I've seen multiple Suns games this year, and I watched a lot of highlights coming up to it. But the biggest thing is Gillespie probably has the best court vision on that team when he's on the ball. Some of the passes he's making after being in the G League for the last 2 years is a huge leap from what you kind of expect from him. This team is chock full of shooters. I mean, Royce O'Neal can shoot the ball. Grayson Allen is shooting 42%. And I think Ryan Dunn as well. Someone else on the team is shooting 40%. I have all of the stats in front of me and I'm losing all of them. Colin Gillespie and Grayson Allen. Sorry.
Yeah,
There we
I think
go.
that
Both of those guys are shooting 40%.
their 3-point percentage is pretty low, and it will go up too, which is another point on that, because like Booker and, as I already mentioned, Brooks are both shooting quite poorly from three. So that's a good point, that they have a couple of guys shooting the lights out that maybe you weren't expected, but then the rest of them are going to come along. So I think the offense is going to improve from middle of the pack. And it's whether they can hold on to that defensive level.
Go on, Michael.
No, you go first.
I was just going to say there, like when they do have Booker back fully fit, they have Jalen Green back fully fit if they can never get him there, and they have Dylan Brooks as well. They have three really good shooters there. As you said about the 3% being very bad, it will come up. Like it can't stay at the level it is, to be fair. It will come back up with those three lads when they get in a bit of a rhythm. And then if you have Grayson Allen on top of that and you have Gillespie, then they do have a good starting five. Maybe one of them will need to be a sixth man. So they probably could get the play-in. I'm just not as high on him as Michael has come in here today. Is unfortunately not yet. Anyway, maybe I'll get there. I haven't watched a whole lot of them, to be perfectly honest. I've maybe seen 5 or 6 of their games, and they don't really seem to be a team that they're not going to run away from anyone, if that makes sense. They're not going to go out and batter anyone really, unless they're playing someone really, really poor. And I think that's what we catch them. They'll have a lot of close games, and they'll probably lose more close games than they'll win. I think personally.
I think that it's interesting though as well, like the rotations that they can have in certain positions, because the multiple players like we just named there, they're all guards. So pretty much, like I know Brooks can play up the forward, but like he's not strong enough on the boards really to consistently be someone that you rely on there. So you're looking at a solid like 4 or 5 man guard rotation, and then it's maybe forward where they struggle a bit, but like they've got good bigs in there now, and the investment into centre seems to have already worked because you've given up picks to get Mark Williams. You drafted Malawach. They've also gotten Iguodoro, and they have Richards too. And from last year, they had an offensive rebound percentage, which was one of the worst in the league. So they were sitting at 26.4%. That was 26th in the league. This year, they've gone up to 5th in the league, 33.8%. That is a huge jump. Mark Williams grabbing 3 a game, Dunn grabbing 2 a game, Jordan Goodwin with his effort grabbing 2 a game. Like there's guys giving you 7 offensive boards per game between 3 of them, and the majority of those guys are only playing around 20 minutes each. So I think the pieces are there. I'm a lot more positive on them in the long run than I was coming into the season, but I still think I agree with you, Shane, the fact that they're not going to be anywhere near the top lads this season, but maybe next year it looks like at least they're building something a bit more sustainable and a bit more effective than what the path they seem to be going down last year.
Yeah, I'm fully with you, and I think the offensive rebounding is such a good indication of the new coach Jordan Ott coming in. He really seems to have got these guys, everybody, 1 to 10, to buy in. Everybody works so hard, and you look, like you said, you look at this front court, and you're kind of thinking like, who here is going to be a rim protector? And you have Dylan Brooks and Ryan Dunn, who are both great defenders, but you're looking at the superstars on the Western Conference and saying like, who are they going to stop? And the thing is they're not stopping that many people, but they're doing enough all together as a unit that they're above average on defense. I mean, I'm looking here, they're number 4 in deflections. They're 4th in like loose ball recovery. And then on the other end, not only do they work hard on defense, they're grabbing as many offensive rebounds as they can. And another thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was kind of an indication they were Bulls like to start, but it has continued throughout. They are the second highest team on making defended field goals. Between Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks, Grayson Allen taking a step up, these guys are hitting contested, defended like shots. And they've done it for a stretch now where I'm starting to think as soon as Devin Booker gets back, it gets a bit easier. And the biggest difference they don't have is they don't have anyone who's driving to the rim looking to take it to the backboard. And once Jalen Green comes in, I think he brings so much into that. Whether he improves from his Rockets days of if he's able to dish out of that well without giving up 3 turnovers a game, we'll see. But if Green is even moderately consistent coming in, I think this team is actually a lot better than we give it credit for. And I think they could really push a lot of teams just with this kind of play style and this coaching style. I don't know. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I think the way that Dylan Brooks in particular started the season has shown him that, as you were saying, the interview with the coach where he said he was disappointed he built around um, Kevin Durant. I think this trade has really worked out well as it has for the Rockets too. And if they can get Jim Green back firing, playing properly, playing like he was when he was at the top of his game with the Rockets, then yeah, who knows? Maybe they can get into the last couple of playoff spots. I still think I think they'd be happy with a play in and see where they go from there. I think offensive boards are they're such a good barometer to see where a team is. Like the offensive boards the Rockets are getting this year has been off the charts. It's actually like it's at a level that's unsustainable, but it's second chance points are so important in the NBA. And obviously the more offensive boards you get, the more chances you are going to get at second points. So if they can keep doing what they're doing and then get Jalen Green back, Booker back, get him shooting, get him firing with Dylan Brooks defending and shooting threes, then who knows? They'll absolutely have a winning record by the end of the season. It's just will the winning record be enough to get him into that top 6 or 7?
Yeah, I think it is a really big part of this. Like that was one of the main things I had written down and highlighted here. how does Jalen Green fit into this Suns team? Because we've named some guys who can play a certain way, and like what you've said, Michael, makes perfect sense that he's going to drive like a lot more, and in theory, give some other guys more space on kickouts, but that's never been his game. He's more drive first, and he doesn't really know where else to look. So unless the presence of a big man inside is going to help that, and he kind of learns how to play off of Mark Williams, or he learns how to dish out to somebody, then I'm struggling a little bit to see how well he'll play as part of this team. But then the one game he did play, he went off like 29 points in 23 minutes. But like we've seen him do that before. It's just this needs to be consistent. And the main thing is, as I said, tiny sample size, but the main thing in that game was that Booker seemed to work quite well with him. 24.7 assists. He did connect with him well. It was against a poor Clippers team. Only one game, as I said again, but like these little things are glimmers of hope, and they'll be hoping that they can maybe coach up Jalen Green to play into that side of things. Because if he just mindlessly dribbles with his head down to the basket, then it's not helpful. But if he gets into the paint and then looks to kick out when it's not there, or he makes smarter decisions to get himself to the line more, then yeah, this is the perfect player for his system. So I think all in all, despite their probable lack of size and physicality in some of the kind of backcourt, and you're looking at even they've got some solid centers, but really we've mentioned Brooks and Dunn. Like these are not guys who are overly physical. They're great handsy, they are strong, but they're not guys you'd go, all right, they're gonna get you like they're going to go up and block a shot at the moment that you need it, or they're going to pull down extra defensive boards or offensive boards consistently. But it's the effort that these guys give. It doesn't matter what their physical limits are. They're putting in efforts, deflections, loose ball takeaways, offensive boards, all things we've pointed out. And all of those things are like hustle things that you don't get without putting in an effort. And that kind of all ties into what Ishbia said. So I guess the proof is in the pudding, and if they keep doing this, then yeah, makes sense. But that's my main concern, that when Green comes, that he fits in properly and he doesn't affect the effort level of others then as well by poor decision making.
Yeah, I think the thing with Green, if Green can come in here and do what he did last year for the Rockets, then he'll be a success. So last year he was averaging 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. If he's in around that again, averaging 20 points with Dylan Brooks like keeps up his average of 22, Devin Booker's averaging 25, that would really, really help him going forward. But if he could bring his rebounds up if brings them up by one over the course of the season on average, brings it up to 5.6 per game. Like that can make such a difference. Bring his points up to 25, level with Booker. Probably won't happen. I don't think he's as good as Booker is, obviously, but if he can kind of either stick to his level or go up even 5% from what he is, then he'll be a success here for the Suns, in my opinion. In terms of everything else you said, I actually have nothing to pick bones on. I think everything you said has been pretty much spot on, to be perfectly honest. I've nothing to come back at you on, unfortunately, as much as I want to.
We'll throw it to you, Michael, then, if you have any closing thoughts on the Suns before we wrap up this interesting topic that you brought to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think I thought it was going to be more of debate than both of you guys thinking they're falling off. I think it's like I think Jalen Green absolutely could average 25. That one game that he played against the Clippers, I think the biggest difference is they had him off ball for a good margin of the game. The coach seems to really buy into this playmaking by committee, and I think it's actually really brought out the playmaking out of Gillespie, like we said, even Ryan Dunn and Dylan Brooks at times when Devin Booker is on the court with him. The teams really, every second possession you see a different guy bringing up the floor, whether it's one of those four, even Grayson Allen at times. Devin Booker is fantastic off ball, and you're kind of hoping that rubs off on Jalen Green. I mean, he had 7 3-pointers made in that first game against the Clippers, and all he was doing was being the second pass. They would just swing it back to him, and he had a wide open 3 on the reverse. He seems to really like, I know it's a 1-game sample size, but he really seemed comfortable in that system that they were playing. Another big thing is Devin Booker wants to shoot that jump shot every time. Every pick and roll he's doing, they're pressing up on him. Now he's getting that pass into the center, into Williams and Richard, but Jalen Green was getting doubled by the Clippers. The first possession, like one of the first possessions of the game, he went around Zubac for a layup, and then they started dropping two every time he was on a pick and roll because they were worried about him getting to the rim. He just gives a dynamic to this team that they're lacking right now and still having moderate success in. I think he does so much to open the game for them that like they could end the season as maybe a 5 seed if they get rolling, but like they could miss the play-in, I think. Devin Booker is still a superstar as well. That guy looks like he hasn't aged in the last 4 years. He will fry anybody in front of him. So this team I thought was going to be fighting for a lottery pick, and I think they might make the playoffs.
Yeah, so if you were to say right now, I think on the Devin Booker point, then yeah, I wholly agree. He's probably he gets way too little love. He's top 15 at least for me. He's like such a good player, and he's had to carry such a load for this team. But if you were to say right now, I think me and Shane are both kind of in lockstep to say playing. What do you think they're going to end up at when we get to playoff time?
It's difficult to see them, like the top 5 are kind of locked. I'm not going to move the Spurs, Lakers, Rockets, Nuggets, Thunder, but it's a question of like the Timberwolves really,
And the
and
Warriors, that kind of range.
I already told you I wasn't messing with the Warriors preseason now. I told you this. I think the fall off is incoming. But I don't know. I think play-in as well. I think a 7 seed. But if the Timberwolves have if they have another rough month,
Yeah,
I'm gonna be coming back on here triumphant about my son's prediction.
no, nice. We love it. Great topic. We'll be looking forward to the next one in 2 weeks' time. Everybody keep an eye out for that, and thanks for coming on again, Michael. So week 14 of Gun Chance. Both of us got 2 points again last week. So the lead is 14-13 to me. We're doing very well in the last few weeks, to be fair. We both had the Pacers to beat the Bulls, and that one came off. The Pacers actually won another game after that. So yeah, 6-18 now. Might be getting nosebleeds soon. And then we both had Villa to beat Arsenal. That one came off, as we already mentioned. I had the Bengals to beat the Bills. The Bengals just shot themselves in the foot 3 times and then shot themselves in the face, so that one didn't come off. And then for you went with the Jets to beat the Dolphins. That was an absolute disaster.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
So we'll go with this week's ones. I'll throw mine out first. I'm going back to the Bengals because I think when you have Joe Burrow, it's hard to overlook him when he's an underdog, and the Ravens are just spluttering. And Lamar Jackson hasn't really been consistent, and he's still not training every week. He's not practiced again on Wednesday, so I'm going with the Bengals 5-4. They're at home, 6 p.m. on Sunday. I'm surprised that they're underdogs here. Next up, I'm going with Burnley to beat Fulham. It was between that and Brighton to beat Liverpool, but I think that has like a 3-3 written all over it, because both teams are a bit leaky and both teams score a lot when they're on it. But I'm going with Burnley to beat Fulham. It's 5:30 on Saturday. 3-1, I think, is a great price because Burnley showed a lot of fight against Newcastle when they went down to 10 men. They had a great chance at the end that could have drawn it back to 2-2. And Fulham only have 4 points from 7 away games. They're awful away from home. So I'm going with that. And then last up, I'm going with the Hawks to beat the Pistons Friday night at midnight. Hawks are 14-11, Pistons are 19-5, so there's the 5-game gap. They've got Jalen Johnson and Kristaps back, so I think they might be the ones to bring Pistons back down a little bit to earth and show that they're not messing around either in the East. So those are my 3 picks.
Not bad. I think it's the first time in a long time we actually have 3 separate ones completely. All 3 of ours are different. So I'm going with the Lions to beat the Rams. So the Lions are 2-1. The Rams are 4-11. I think the Lions need this so much. They're going to come out swinging with both fists and kicking the way around as well. So I thought a 2-1, not a bad shout. In the football, I've gone with West Ham to beat Villa. And Villa are playing right now, I think. Yeah, they're playing this evening at some point. So West Ham have a full week to prepare for coming into this. West Ham are 13-5, Villa are evens. So I've gone for that, and I've gone for the Bucks at 10 and 15 to beat the Celtics, who were 15 and 9.
Ooh, Bucks to beat the Celtics. That's an interesting one. I think the odds on those three, if once the Bucks odds come out, that'll be a hefty bet if that one came up.
Mm.
But West Ham to beat Villa, interesting. I don't know. I could see that being a draw if West Ham just want to sit back. But I think when we have these ones where we're all like 3-3 separate, it could go like completely. One of us could get 3 and the other person could get none, and then that's a massive
Yeah,
swing. So I like that we have the same. And Villa are 1-0 up right now against Basel. Gason scored, which is good for him because he hasn't done a whole lot since they signed him.
yeah.
But yeah, that's Gans Seans. All right, so we've got Evan back on once again. You'll have seen him before, our resident Cowboys fan. What a better time to get him on than right now when Cowboys are pushing, trying to get into those playoff spots. We'll come on to that in a few minutes. We've got another little topic first, but first of all, welcome, Evan. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming back on once again.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Much appreciated. It's always a pleasure to be on Who's Got the Ball. It's an exciting one this week to go through some bits and pieces, yeah, especially with the roller coaster that is the Cowboys playoffs. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking shite.
Yeah, and what we're gonna have to do as well at the end of the season is come back to our predictions that we made at the start and see how close we were, because some are looking decent, some are looking dodgy. But yeah, we'll come back to those, and probably in between the Super Bowl and the playoff championship games. So that's a nice time to talk something about your preseason predictions, because it's a bit of a dead week. But we'll start with what we usually touch on, clutch player of the week from the NFL. So myself and Shane have decided we go back offense this week. 2 weeks defensive players the last 2 weeks, but this time we're back on the offensive side of things. Back in the NFC, Christian Watson. What a game he had for the Packers against the Bears. Kind of a game that could be a turning point for the Packers, and could be a turning point for the Bears too, depending on how they bounce back. So he's in his fourth season in the league. He has suffered injuries on and off, and even this season he started with injuries, but 4 for 4, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns in a key game. What really much else can you ask from him, like in a big moment when he needs to step up? He had a touchdown the week before against the Lions too, so he's 15 games last season, 620 yards, 2 touchdowns. Already in 7 games this season, 452 and 5 TDs. Shane, do you think that he's the new wide receiver one for the Packers? With Tucker Kraft really was in that role until he got injured. Do you think Watson can fill that?
Yeah, I think the thing with Watson is like he is the man on that team who has always been there to make the explosive plays. So 4 catches for 89 yards, so 22 yards a catch, just over it, is really good going. It's getting your team getting them moving, getting them down the field, and getting your 2 touchdowns in as well. Then it kind of makes him it makes Jordan Love know he can trust him. Jordan Love doesn't really like to throw the ball. He was only 17 for 25, which isn't great for Joe when he's your quarterback and you have so many wide receivers out there. But like as you said, what more can you ask of him? If you throw the ball to him 4 times, he catches it 4 times, goes off and gets 2 touchdowns, and you win the game. There's not a whole lot more you can do, really.
I would say Jordan Love isn't like a gunslinger where he throws like
No.
40 passes a game, but he is pass first, and he likes to rifle the ball, like literally like take someone's head off with it. And I don't think outside of Kraft anyone else had the hands to do that. So Watson, I know he was like 4 of 10 against the Lions, but 4 of 4 last week. And Jaden Reed coming back, I still do think, despite that Watson will be the number one, and I think he'll probably end up with the most touchdowns and the most receiving yards for the team this season. Even with Dobbs still out there, he's definitely going to surpass Kraft's touchdown numbers. So, Evan, what have you made of him over the last few weeks since he's gotten back into the fray?
Yeah, absolute baller. I picked him up in week 10 on fantasy. Hell yeah. he was just a big chilling on the waiver wire. I mean, yeah, he came off a torn ACL at the tail end of 2024 against Chicago. That was a tough one. So he obviously missed a heap of preseason bits and pieces here and there. And then he just exploded in was it week 7 against the Steelers, I think, when he first came
Yeah.
back in. Had a great game. I mean, he's had some phenomenal performances since coming back. He's had one or two lullish games. He's rocking 30 to 40, 50 yards a game. But like he's had multiple TDs in his last 4 games. He's the deep threat for Jordan Love. He's just somebody that Jordan Love now seemingly can rely on. Even looking back last year at the wide receiver threats that Jordan Love had to play with, even in fantasy, it was a tough one to go with because you didn't know, is it Dontavian Wicks, is it Romeo Dobbs, is it Christian? You didn't know who to run Green Bay wise as a receiver because everyone was getting dotted up, and one person was popping off this week, the next it was somebody else. But Christian Watson is clearly the guy who's stepping up now on a near on week to week basis. And he'll definitely be the guy that they rely on going forward, I think, for sure. Um, yeah,
I think Jaden Reed, I kind of mentioned, he just had his kind of breakout since he's get back in the frame. For me, at the start of the season, he was their most talented wide receiver, but Watson has proved reliable in the interim, and Dobbs has kind of fallen out of favor. So I think with Watson, Reed, going into the postseason with those two, Josh Jacobs running the ball, I think you can go pretty far with that. And obviously Micah on the other side of the ball. So I think they've really done well to solidify what they want to do. I think LaFleur has done a good job. And especially in a game like that where it's like two offensive geniuses, Ben Johnson against LaFleur. Before the season started, Ben Johnson was kind of making sly comments about LaFleur, saying there was Kevin O'Connell and Dan Campbell in that division, and he usually liked to beat LaFleur twice a season. LaFleur just came out and showed him what's what in the first time they play again in a couple of weeks, which I cannot wait for because if LaFleur beats him twice, he surely can't hold his tongue there. He has to make some comment after the game. But really, right now, do you think they're gonna win this division? Shot to you first, Shane.
Yeah, I do think they'll win the division now. I think they're far enough ahead of it that they're not. I just can't see them falling off enough to let the Bears and the Lions get in ahead of them. I think the Lions will pick the Bears to the second spot, but I think the Packers are going to win the division now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they'll win it. Purely maybe the tie might help them that they had with the Cowboys, who we're coming on to in a minute, but
Yeah,
as to give them one less loss, and they might end up maybe as the same wins as one of the other teams and sneak in because they've one less loss there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one between the Bears and Lions. What do you make of this division going into the rest of the season?
yeah, it is a bit of a tough one. I think for sure they could absolutely just hold it down. It's going to be an interesting one to see how it pans out over the next couple of weeks. Matchups wise, we've got a lot of interesting matchups. But I think overall, come playoff time, I think Green Bay are fine. I think they're golden.
Yeah, yeah. NFC is tough, and to win a division and get home field advantage would mean a lot to any team in the NFC right now. But let's stick with another team in the NFC. Evan rocking the CD Lamb jersey as
Yes, sir.
as he would love to see that man make it into the playoffs with the rest of his team. Those Dallas Cowboys, they're coming in hot. Looking at kind of their recent performances, okay, they lost last weekend to the Lions. Unfortunately, Lamb went out in that game. Looks like he's trending to return for their game against Minnesota this weekend, which would be huge, absolutely huge Sunday night football. And before that, they were on a very hot streak. Like after that loss to Arizona, I thought 3-5-1, that's it, like finished. But to come off that, beat the Raiders, which was a nice confidence boost on Monday Night Football, and then from there to beat the Eagles and the Chiefs within the space of 4 days, the Super Bowl competitors from last year, before going into a really handy walk into the rest of the season. Like you've got Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, and Giants, and the Commanders are absolutely banged up. So the question is, can the Cowboys still make the playoffs? Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one. So right now we're currently hovering around 10% chance to make the playoffs, which isn't ideal. However, the Lions loss didn't help that. On the flip side, the Eagles loss to the Chargers went our way as well. The Detroit Lions game was a tough one. We shot ourselves in the foot. Um, the Eagles have turned the ball over far too many times in that Chargers game to stay relevant and stay competitive. I think one thing that was really tough in that Lions game was, I think, Jake Ferguson. That was a tough one. So, like, overall, as a tight end, he came out with a solid game, decent receptions, moderate yards, but he had the fumble, which was tough. And then on top of that, he was the one holding
Yeah.
where CD was towards the red zone and the PI and or I think it was illegal hands to the face, actually, not
Yeah, he
holding,
grabbed
sorry.
his face mask. Yeah.
Yeah, illegal hands to the face versus PI. They cancelled out each other, and that would have put us first and goal at the 5 yard line. So that could have been an absolute 180 on that game. But look, what can we do? That was one that if coming into that trio of games, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, I honestly didn't think that we were gonna beat the last, two Super Bowls champions, we'll say, in the Eagles and the Chiefs. So the other thing as well, I think for us to like have a chance in our next run, we need to stop playing so massively from behind. I mean, like that Eagles win in itself was huge, but it was off the back that it was a 21-0 deficit. It's not sustainable to play that far behind. And I think that that's one thing that the Cowboys defense kind of needs to work on. But overall, we have some huge matchups. So we've got the Vikings, the Chargers, the Commanders, and then the Giants. As a fellow Giants fan, I know I said this to you last night. If you could just roll over and give us that dub, that would be much appreciated. We need the win, and you need the closer round pick. You know what I mean? So like you're hooking us up, and we're hooking you up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like outside of that, yeah, it's a tough one. I think on paper, I think the Chargers is going to be the hardest matchup that we have. I
Mhm.
mean, they're 11 ranked offense, they're 4th ranked defense. The stats don't lie. They do a good job. Can we surpass that? That's out of the 4 that we have upcoming. That's the one that's going to be a tough one, I think.
Yeah, I think you're matched up well for that, though, in my opinion, because they want to run the life out of the ball. Because Justin Herbert is in bits. You could see he did a great job, but it was almost a bad decision to play him there against the Eagles. They got the win, but could have ended up a lot worse because of how many hits he took, 8 sacks, and he was clearly not right with his hand. He wasn't able to protect himself. So they were running the ball a lot. But the Cowboys have invested heavily in wanting to be a team to stop the run. So they've got Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark there, who are two great run stoppers. So it is a nice matchup. Although the Chargers are a good team, the Cowboys are the type of team that can kind of, I think, eliminate their strengths. But yeah, I think you're going to need to go 4-0. And then on the other side, you're looking at the Eagles playing the Raiders, Commanders twice, and the Bills. So really going to have to lose to the Bills and then one of those other 3 with the Cowboys winning all 4. With the way Jalen Hurts is playing recently, 55% and 52.5% completion in his last 2 games, losing both and throwing 4 interceptions on Monday Night Football. And it could have been more if there wasn't drops. The last 2 games they won, they only scored 10 and 16 points. So, look, if the Commanders put out an effort like they did against the Broncos the other week, then maybe they can take one of them. But it's such a handy little run in for the Eagles outside of that Bills game. Shane, do you think that the Cowboys realistically do have a chance here, or are the Eagles just going to run the table in these last 4?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Evan. I don't see the Cowboys making this. I really thought they were going to win out when they went back to back against the Chiefs and the Eagles. I thought they were literally going to go and win their last 6 or 7 games, and they'd have absolutely cruised in. Obviously, then that Lions loss is just it's the nail in the coffin for me. Unfortunately, even if they do win their last 4, I just don't see it being enough to get them over the Lions, to get them over the Eagles as well in terms of for the wild card spot as well. So. No, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to make the playoffs. You're going to be sitting with myself and Tranks watching from the outside.
Look, if that is the case, I will happily join ye in the ring of sorrow. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I love how you just brought back in Cold, the Tranks nickname. Like,
I don't know where it came from. I
Yeah.
haven't called you that in about 8 months. I say that just completely came off the cuff there.
back in the Uber days when we all worked
Yeah.
together. Like, I got nicknamed. Oh, the story is just absolutely ridiculous. Let's just tangent off into it for a second. But like,
Yeah.
one of the lads was like, I'd recently joined one of the guys, Connor, big Leeds fan, God help him, and he said that something like, "Oh, I'll give you a name, but it has to be like with the nicknames or the letters in your name." And then he said, "Oh, we can call you Kettle because my surname is Kellett." And then he was like, "Oh, we can go Laket." And then he was like, Lekett. And then I was like, "Oh, there's an extra L." And then he was like, "Oh, Lil Ket, like a rapper, Lil Ket." And then everyone, of course, from there puts Ket to ketamine into tranquilizer. And next thing, I'm just being called Tranks for absolutely no reason for a solid, however long I was there, 11 months. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was a nice one. Good time. You were also part of that concoction of naming, Shane. So
I
you
was
were
the one that
literally
got you
feeding the
from.
fire, like when he was like trying to get there.
Yeah, I was the one that got you from Little Ket to Tranks. That was all me after James. I think Connor got us there, and I just pushed it over the line. Then I
I
was like,
think
yeah,
that's
that'll
better,
do.
to be honest. I would rather that because the other one just makes me sound, yeah,
It
different.
sounds like you should have face tattoos under your eyes if you're going to be called Little Ket, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. But love you just coldly dropped that in there. Back onto the Eagles or Cowboys, should I say? Well, both. But
Yeah.
one point I did want to make is that I know it's to say, oh, like if you had won one more game, but if you had just won that Cardinals game right now, it would be 7-6-1. The Eagles would be 8-5. If you win out, that's 10, sorry, 11-6-1, and the Eagles lose to Buffalo, and then you're into the playoffs because you have a less loss. That one loss might be the one that bites you. But I think, yeah, I just don't know about the Eagles. Let's talk about the Eagles for a sec. Like, what on earth is going on over there, Evan?
Yeah, the Eagles are going through a bit of a whirlwind at the minute. And like we said, yeah, their matchups upcoming, yeah, the Raiders, Commanders, Hoys, and Bills. We're hoping that the Bills put them down. We're hoping that the Commanders can once at least put them down. But if they want to stay on top and keep us at arm's length, they need to lock in. Their offense hasn't been great this year. Yeah, sure, they've been dealing with a lot of O line issues and injuries. They've had play calling criticisms. They've had locker room and culture cracks showing. And seemingly it's just the lack of ability to adjust from play to play on the field. I think those are the things that are holding them back from, how insane they looked last year. I mean, Saquon had a historical run, and that's just not how it is this season. But again, those things all coming together, it's all culminating into the downfall of the Eagles. I think, again, I don't want to be delusional, but yeah, I think we have a chance. Okay, I'm not going to be delusional. I don't think we're going to do it. I don't think we're going to do it. I think the Eagles lock in. I think they overcome the hurdles, and I do think they hold on to the spot. But look, we can always look forward to next year. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Well,
I
I
think
would say I have a bit of faith because I like would say if you win these next three and the Eagles lose to Buffalo and you're going into the last week, you're playing the Giants. That's a shoe in. Like you're going to put up like 700 yards on us, and then the Commanders in the very last week they can sting the Eagles to end the
And they'd
season.
love to as well. They would
They would just
absolutely love
love
to
to
go
do
out there
that.
and do that. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that would be
The thing
tasty.
for
That would be tasty.
Yeah. For me, the thing with the Eagles is they've been trending downwards for so long in terms of their points scored. Like the Giants win over the Eagles literally seemed to break them. Like it actually seemed to just put them like, how on earth have we just let that happen? I know they went out and beat you 2 weeks later, but 10 points against the Packers to beat them, 16 against the Lions,
Hmm.
21 against the Cowboys, but didn't score in 3 quarters. 15 against the Bears, 19 against the Chargers. They're just not putting up the points they were. You made a great point there that Saquon isn't doing what he was doing last year. He's just not able to get those long bursting runs where he goes 60 yards and just gets the Eagles flying up. And then you've Jalen Hurts has forgotten how to throw the ball and he can't seem to run as well. His double his double turnover at the weekend was absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best things I've ever seen in football. So funny, but it's just they just seem to completely they've just fallen off a cliff and they're still falling. Another great point made by James there. The Commanders would absolutely love to go out and ruin their chances on the last game of the season, especially with how miserable their season has been as well. If they could like bring the Eagles down to their level for one more game, knock them out of the playoff picture, and get the Cowboys in, I'm sure they'd love to.
Yeah. A Saquon is kind of a sad situation as well. If you're an Eagles fan, for me as a Giants fan who let him go, it's like, oh, okay, he wasn't exactly gracious when he left. So him not playing as well, as since it's not an injury, I'm kind of like, all right, okay, it's good to be happy with that. But it's kind of sad to watch the fact that they have to do a fake tush push to get him his first big run of the season.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's good play calling. You stole it from another team that did it like a week ago, but at the same time, he can't do it in regular play, and that's probably down to Lane Johnson being injured. I think that's such a massive loss, and that's probably why Hurts is uncomfortable too. So yeah, it's not looking good for them in general. I think if they do sneak in, they're going to get waxed once they get into the playoffs, similar to the way they did 2 years ago. Because the NFC is so strong, one of these wildcard teams is going to be an unbelievable challenge. So yeah, I'm not positive about the Eagles getting any further than one game in the playoffs if they do get in there. I'd much rather see the Cowboys get in there and cause a bit of a stir. Because no one really wants to go to Dallas and get involved in a shootout as their very first game of the playoffs. So I think it's a good storyline going into the rest of the season. We need to keep watching the Cowboys and make sure that they don't slip up and lose. They're playing 9. They're playing 9. Big game against 9. JJ McCarthy. God help us all. What side of him is going to come out? When you give yourself the nickname of 9, you just know you're doing something wrong. That's my opinion on him. But we'll we'll leave it there. Thanks again for coming on, Ev. We'll definitely have you on again. Hopefully, if the Cowboys make the playoffs, we'll get you on sooner. But if not, we'll get you on close to the playoff time, and we'll get you those predictions chat.
Before I depart, I'd like to point out we're currently at 6 wins. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
the over/under wins at the start of the season were 7.5. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
Right? Right? Everyone was laughing. Here we are. Okay. Also, pre-Parsons trade, we were 9.5. If we win out, I'm just saying.
Okay, so let's just book it in there. The Cowboys lose their last 4 games, and thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Ed. Thank you.
Nice one, man. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a million, lads. Have a good one.
Okay, so the power rankings to wrap things up. Week 14 of these power rankings. I'll throw it to you first, Shane, if you want to throw out yours from last week and your updates.
Yeah, so last week I was OKC, Arsenal, Villa, Patriots, Broncos, Rockets. I kept the same 6 this year, just this week, just switched it up a bit. So OKC, Arsenal, and Villa remain as my top 3. I'd move the Rockets up to 4th and just push the Pats and the Broncos down to 5 and 6. So the Rockets is the only change from 6th up to 4th.
Ooh, so what's your full order? Sorry again.
OKC, Arsenal, Villa, Rockets, Patriots, Broncos.
Interesting. I'm still sticking with Arsenal in there as a second spot. What's the reason behind that?
They're still top of the league. They've only lost that one game, and they could have won it at many stages as well. So it's not like they haven't fallen off a cliff just yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do soon now, but for the moment they do have to stay in there.
Yeah, I think as well their performance in the Champions League showed that the power they still have, and that Madueke goal was unbelievable.
Outrageous.
So mine then last week was OKC, Arsenal, Rams, Villa, Patriots, Pistons. I've got 2 new teams in here. So I've got OKC first still. Rams moved up now to second because I think the Rams are just unbelievable. And I don't know. I just think that they might go out and give a whooping to the Lions, and that would be another even massive statement. But I just think that they're top class. Obviously, OKC are 16-game win streak, so they're going to have to see them out and sit at the top. But then I moved Villa up to 3rd. I think that beating Arsenal, continuing to win so many games, and Arsenal dropping points recently deserves Villa to move up a spot at least for this week. So Arsenal are in 4th. Then my 2 new entries are at 5th and 6th. So I've got the Seahawks in 5th. I just think that they are so good. I just don't know how they can't be in this. For me, the Rams and Seahawks are just the best 2 in it. And I just really, really want to have the Seahawks in here at this point. I know the Patriots were on a bye, but I just think the Seahawks are something else, the things that they can do to teams and defensively. And then number 6, I've got the San Antonio Spurs. I think 9-3 without Wemby is very, very powerful for me, including the win over the Lakers in the Cup last night. And they won against the Nuggets too. Like, you can see other guys stepping up. You can see De'Aaron Fox really settling into this team. Dylan Harper's been impressive, and I just think that that's a powerful team if they're managing to do that even without by far their best player. So I've got OKC, Rams, Villa, Arsenal, Seahawks, and Spurs as my 6.
Solid.
So let's leave it there. That's another episode wrapped. Appreciate Michael for coming on. He'll be back on every 2 weeks, so you'll get plenty of him, and we'll get Evan on again very soon. So appreciate both the lads for coming on. Throw it to you, Shane, to finish up.
Yeah, thanks, lads. Just keep watching, keep enjoying this. Over 50 episodes done now, so it's absolutely mad how quick this work. Next week is 52, so it's a full year of episodes, which is unbelievable. So thanks for watching. We really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want. Give us abuse if you want. Just do something, and we'll see you next week.
Nice one, lads. See you next week.
Welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball with Shane and James.